Hey folks, Rich here. Just wanted to check in on this beautiful spring morning here in mid-May. And I'm about to do some spring maintenance on the hugle mounds here. This is where I grow cannabis. I've got 8 pots set up, and the pots are 3, 4, and 5 years old this year. That'll be how many seasons they've done. And but they were all built in the same way, hugle mounds. So I dug down 2 feet, and then I loaded up the hole with rotten wood, green wood, sticks, twigs, grass clippings, leaves, of course native soil, and composted cow manure. And so that's been 5 years on these here in the back. And you see I just framed them in with some pallets and some old ash that was dead back in the woods. If you know the story of the emerald ash borer, this is some of the remains. But yeah, that's what I use for trellising. And so I just wanted to highlight this morning the benefits of using cover crops in a hugle mound. So yeah, these were packed full of wood and debris and things like that. But years later, they've become quite porous and absorptive. I have a bamboo stick here for, staking tomatoes or whatever. And I've got it marked off 1, 2, 3. It's 47 inches long. But you'll see when I poke this in here to the ground, I went, it's easier to show how much is left of that 47 inches. So, 3.5 feet pretty readily. And I'm seeing that across all of the pots here. Here's a little more shallow, and I may have run into a piece of wood or something in there, but that's over 2.5 feet. So when you think about what's going on with these cover crops, in this case I've got rye going, and over the years my cover cropping is getting more sophisticated and complex. This is a pretty good example. Rye is kind of the base of it all, but daikon radish, which they call the tillage radish, here lasted through the winter. I thought it was going to winter kill, but we did have a mild winter, so that could be why it stuck around. But now you see it's going to flower, and that's fine. But one of the first principles in regenerative agriculture is to keep something alive and living in the soil at all times. I use a combination of regenerative agriculture and permaculture. You'll see in the back there I have a chicken run that's full of wood chips, and the wood chips spend about 6 months in there, and I get food scraps and toss them in there, and I get a rich compost that comes out after I sift it down to a 1/2 inch, and I'll top it off. And that's my only amendment that I do in the spring and the fall. But yeah, I'm getting this porosity, and you think about the roots of these things, these still have a couple more weeks to go. But yeah, just as much as you see above ground, below ground is equally excitement in the chicken house. Yeah, that below ground activity is really important, and that's what allows me to take a 4-foot piece of bamboo and just pretty effortlessly plunge it in there. But that means when it rains, there's all kinds of canals for this to catch and capture. But it also means when the plant is growing that the soil is very open and arid and alive. I had a couple of them analyzed last year using the Haney test, and got very high marks, very active, biologically active soil. So to prepare a bed for the season, after the cover crop's grown a bit, I'll come out and I'll flatten it down, sort of like a crop circle. And after that, I'll throw in these pieces of glass and plexiglass that I have. Tempered glass is awesome. It works the best. But I've gathered a few pieces over the years, and this is my makeshift solarizer that if I had more glass, I would do more of them at once, but it's fine to go at this pace. But this takes about 2 days of full sun. Today's the 3rd day. I could have done this last evening if I wanted to, but I have the compost sifted there to a 1/2 inch through a screen and that's come out of the chicken run back there. And what I'll do now is I'll take this glass off, cover it up with 2 to 4 inches of compost, and then I'll plant clover in my summer cover crop, which I'll talk about in a minute. One of the things that's cool about doing it this way is I can, with the glass, I really am able to get some pretty high temperatures and kill the grass off, or in this case it was ryegrass, some hairy vetch, daikon radish, some clover, and you'll see some life still on the edges. That's totally fine. We're going to cover it up here in a minute, and if that stuff grows back, that's fine. Oh, look, here we had some plantain, which is a native plant here that found its way in there. So I like to see that kind of thing as well. So this residue now I'll just leave in place, and that'll be food for the worms and the bugs and the critters, and give airspace and all that. I was worried about doing it this way the first couple of years. I thought, you know, it would reach that new residue, the roots that is, and stall out. But I found that the cover crop, whatever it is, which has been mostly white clover, but it's more complex as I go. But yeah, mostly white clover will push through that compost and then down through this and then into the deeper soil without incident. So, but again, that idea in regenerative agriculture of always keeping a living root active and working in the soil. I'm always interested in increasing the microbial activity in the soil and replenishing it and encouraging it to go further. So here I have some worm castings that I harvested over the winter. And I don't know, that's half gallon-ish of it. And you'll see it's pretty coarse. The bedding I use is directly from the chicken run, so I use that instead of cardboard like you might do in the city. But then I throw my worms in there, and yeah, I don't worry about sifting it down super fine or anything like that. It's not going to potting soil, and we're here to feed the soil, and carbon, and the addition of carbon is always a good thing. So I'll spread those down first. There's quite a few worms in there as well. I wasn't expecting that. And they are quick to go down. Worm castings is very potent and provides a lot of microbial activity. Top that off with more microbial activity from a different source, and that's the compost from the chicken run. All right, so here's the cover crop mix I came up with. A couple of types of clover, red and white, crimson clover, the tillage radish, those are the pink ones you see. A splash of buckwheat, some hairy vetch, some winter pea. My cover crop mix seems to vary every single time I plant one, so we'll see. But in addition to that, I use this. It's called BioCoat Gold, and it's a biological inoculant that has a bunch of bacteria, mycorrhizal fungi, all kinds of good stuff to help the plants get off to a really good start. But this is going to help ensure that there's a lot of biological activity in this from the get-go. So we've got the worm castings, the chicken compost, and now the BioCoat Gold from Advancing Eco Agriculture, who I recommend you check out because they are amazing. John Kempf is just incredible at teaching people about how to work with biology and nature to get the maximum for both. So everyone's benefiting in the best of ways. So check him out, John Kempf at Advancing Eco Agriculture. But he gives you the full story and the reasons why. But anyways, that's my cover crop. So yeah, now this is planted, and I do have plants that could go into it today, but it's May 11th. Our official last frost date is May 15th, and we're not predicted any frost, but I'm just gonna give this a few days to rest and reestablish itself. Maybe see some of the clover start to sprout, germinate. But yeah, once that's done and ready to go, it'll be time to get the plant in here, and we'll see how it goes. But for the past 5 years, this method has proven to be really, really amazing. And most recently, the addition of the cover crops has really just put it over the top. And I have one more amendment, and I'll show you that now. I'm here in the greenhouse, and I've got a compost tea brewing. But yeah, lots of ways to make compost tea. This is an aerated compost tea in a 7-gallon bucket. I wish it was much larger, but I'll get there eventually. But this is really quite sufficient for my needs, because I dilute it down to half, 50% or even less. So it goes a fairly long way, and I will be doing this for the next month or so. I tend to really go heavy with the compost teas in the springtime when things are getting established and ready to go. And I am leaning towards a shorter brew these days. I'm doing 8 to 12 hours. Today will be about probably an 8 to 10 hour before this goes out. But yeah, I'll mix that with just some regular rainwater or pond water, and then I'll get it out onto the new prepped bed out there, and things will be off to the races. So again, another source of biology. We've got the biology of the worm castings, the chicken compost, the inoculant, and here the microbial result out into that hugle bed is going to be quite spectacular. So we look forward to that. And like I said, I do have some plants that are ready to go, but we'll give it a few more days here in the greenhouse, and they're doing plenty fine, so stay tuned.